Tensions rise sharply as India carries out airstrikes against Pakistan. China looks to stimulate its economy to counter the effects of its trade war with the U.S. Labor and women's rights activists push for reforms in Taiwan's childcare sector. Plus, the search for a new pope is underway as Cardinals convene in the Vatican. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Betty Chen. India has carried out military strikes on 9 locations in Pakistan, killing at least 26 people and injuring 46 more. Tensions are now running high between the 2 nuclear-armed neighbors. Ed O'Brien reports.
Explosions shake the valleys and people flee for safety as India and Pakistan exchange artillery fire across their disputed border in Kashmir. India says it carried out airstrikes against 9 terrorist targets in Pakistan in response to a deadly attack on tourists 2 weeks ago in India-controlled Kashmir. Residents in Pakistan's Muzaffarabad woke up to the sound of those airstrikes.
And all of us were asleep when we heard a noise. We wondered what had happened. I thought maybe some accident had occurred. Then a fire broke out and we stepped outside a little. Soon after, another explosion shook the entire house.
India's foreign secretary says these strikes were to deter further attacks from militant groups based in Pakistan.
Our intelligence monitoring of Pakistan-based terrorist modules indicated that further attacks against India were impending. There was thus a compulsion both to deter and to preempt.
Pakistan's military says it has shot down 5 Indian fighter jets. India has yet to officially confirm it, but media reports say debris from 3 Indian fighter jets was seen in India-controlled Jammu and Kashmir. Analysts in India say they may have used both fighter jets and drones in their strikes on Pakistan.
So now there are some reports to suggest that drones have been also used. So perhaps this is unmanned and manned systems come together.
Pakistan is now vowing to respond to India's airstrikes.
Pakistani forces, with the full support of the people of Pakistan, are currently delivering a strong and complete response to this act of the enemy, and a befitting reply will be given.
World leaders including China, Japan and the UN are calling for restraint from both sides, while the US is pushing for a peaceful resolution. But as the 2 nuclear powers brace for further confrontation and both sides refusing to back down, those calls for calm may fall on deaf ears. Joseph Wu and Adil Brad for TaiwanPlus.
Now we turn to the international effects of India's strikes and the response from Pakistan. Pakistan has shut down its airspace for 48 hours, normally a busy channel for flights between Europe and Asia. Our reporter Tiffany Wong has been following these changes and joins us from the newsroom in Taipei. Tiffany, how have travelers been affected?
At least 10 flights between Taiwan's biggest airport, Taoyuan International Airport, and Europe have been rerouted or canceled, including flights from Taiwan's 2 biggest air carriers, EVA Airlines and China Airlines. That's as of 9 a.m. on Wednesday morning. Now, if you look at the flight data, you can see the airspace above northwestern Pakistan clear out in the early hours of Wednesday morning as those Indian strikes were happening. At the time, there were 57 international flights in Pakistan's airspace, and they all quickly cleared out or were rerouted. Now, over 52 flights to or from Pakistan have also been canceled, leaving some passengers stranded inside those areas. And even before that, some airlines were trying to avoid the area, knowing that this could become a conflict zone, especially after Pakistan shared that it had heard intelligence that India could strike within days, as it's now followed through with. Taiwan issued a level 3 travel warning, urging people to avoid the area if possible on that Pakistan-India border, including Ladakh, Kashmir, and Punjab. And the US, UK, and Australia also issued their own travel warnings to their citizens. Now, it's unclear when the area will be safe to travel in again, and we also don't know if Pakistan will extend this airspace closure. This could be costly for airlines and passengers who will have to sit potentially on longer flights or face delays. But of course, what's most important here is the safety of the passengers and the crews.
Thanks, Tiffany. That was Tiffany Wong explaining how the escalating conflict between India and Pakistan is impacting international travel. China has announced a slew of stimulus measures hoping to counter the economic damage of its trade war with the U.S. They come ahead of a trade meeting between the two countries later this week. Reese Ayers reports.
China's economy is about to receive a ton of fiscal support from the government to try to counteract the impacts of the ongoing tariff spat with Washington. Measures laid out by Beijing's top financial officials include lowering interest and mortgage rates, reducing bank reserve requirements to free up more cash for lending, and help for some of China's biggest listed companies affected by tariffs. Additionally, China's central bank will set up low-cost re-lending facilities for people buying tech-related bonds and for investments in elderly care and services. Global markets and supply chains, particularly in the US and China, have been reeling since the Trump administration's tariffs brought most bilateral trade between two of the world's biggest trading partners to a near standstill.
4月初以来，美政府的关税政策严重冲击了国际经贸秩序。 国际金融市场剧烈动荡，也给我们国内的资本市场带来很大的压力。
The measures come just days ahead of a planned meeting between top US and Chinese officials in Switzerland for their first high-level trade talks since the tariff war began, a sign that both Washington and Beijing are looking to ease tensions and restart trade. Asian markets responded positively to the stimulus measures and the news that the US and China will meet, inspiring hope that this tit-for-tat trade war between the world's two largest economies could soon come to an end. Alex Chen and Reese Ayers for TaiwanPlus.
A new Taiwan-Japan tech group aims to boost communication and strengthen supply chains across the region's growing semiconductor industry.
这个平台呢，也可以迅速 凝聚业者的问题、业者的需要同时直接反映给政府，同时也知道政府在做些什么事，可以从政府拿到这个资讯。那么同样的，也可以直接跟日本交流日本的相对的组织，那他也可以直接反映政府。
Frank Xie, a senior advisor to President Lai Ching-te and Taiwan's former representative to Japan, oversaw the founding of the Taiwan-Japan Semiconductor and Technology Association. The project is touted as a major step for Lai's policy of strengthening supply chains with like-minded countries. The platform's functions include consultation, coordination, information sharing, and addressing barriers to the industry. Fact-checking groups in Taiwan say they've lost funding from U.S. tech giant Meta, which recently changed its fact-checking policies.
他决定要停止对于这个全球的视察组织的赞助，这个对于全球来讲都是一个非常大的冲击，尤其是我们是面对这个中国的对岸的一个非常大的一个挑衅。那不只是军事的演习，我们还有很强大的这个讯息的渗透。
Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg announced in January that Facebook would end its policy of using third-party fact-checkers in favor of so-called community notes. This relies on users to provide additional context to posts containing questionable or disputed information. One long-running study called The Varieties of Democracy found that Taiwan has been the country most impacted by disinformation for several years in a row. Parents of small children face tough choices when daycares suddenly close due to an outbreak of illness. Taking time off work isn't always easy, and activists say it's often women who are left to handle the situation. Now, labor and women's groups are calling for more flexible leave to let parents handle sudden crises without added pressure from work. John Venturez reports.
Getting a spot in one of Taiwan's daycare centers is hard enough, but for many parents, that's just the start of the challenge. Outbreaks of stomach bugs and other illnesses shut down the average daycare in a place like Taipei for up to a month a year. And if grandparents aren't in the picture, that can mean having to take the time off of work that most companies just won't allow. As Mother's Day approaches, labor activists say it's time for the government to take a hard look at this problem. Zhang Lihuan knows all about the toll unexpected closures due to illness can take on working families. Her grandchild's daycare closed 3 times last year. They gave up their spot, and the mother had to take 7 months of parental leave to fill in.
我们上礼拜遇到他公托的同学的家长，我们问他说：“那你还有学校还会一直停课吗？”他说：“对，2月份也几乎停了1个月。”
A slew of data these activists have collected shows that different cities have different standards, and that daycares in some regions close less often than in others. Still, sudden closures are a nationwide reality. Though the health ministry announced last month plans to cut down the number of closures due to sickness, parents could still be in a bind. Daycares will have the right to tell parents to take sick kids home. Labor unions say this shows the time-off system needs reform.
说，既然政府他要求家长要期待家长可以成为政府这个负担防疫的一环或者他的义务，那我认为他就应该给予家长请假的配套措施跟他的收入保障哦。政府他一直在喊着说0到6岁国家养，但是我在想，国家养难道只是降低学费的需求吗？那养孩子也不是只有把孩子送托就没事啦。
Asked for comment, the Labor Ministry told TaiwanPlus that 1. The law already guarantees parental leave, family care leave, and reduced or adjusted working hours. 2. That the ministry has trialed flexible parental leave and found it helped men get more involved in childcare. And 3. That it's reviewing and planning with a holistic mindset and will keep working to make the workplace more friendly. This doesn't seem to be what activists want to hear, though. President Lai Ching-te says that while both parents can get up to 2 years of parental leave, the government needs to strengthen childcare subsidies and assistance and improve the quality of childcare. Still, nearly a year after his inauguration, people here are calling on the president to keep a promise to put what his campaign called flexible parental leave into place. And they say this should be separate from the sorts of leave workers are entitled to for rest. They say it's not just workers' rights at stake, but gender equality.
其实在性别意涵上也非常的清楚，如果今天这个假是没有薪水的，一定都是女性在请；如果这个假是必须要块状请，比较长期的离开职场，也一定都是女性在请。这个在国内外的经验都是如此。
Taiwan already has one of the world's lowest fertility rates, and these activists say financial reasons aren't the only reason why. They say if the government's serious about getting more people to have children, it's time for them to make sure working people have the time off they need to raise a family. And they want the government to keep the promises it's already made. Klein Wang and John Van Trieste in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up after the break, as Taiwan's lawmaker recall movement heats up, the Central Election Commission is standing behind its investigations into alleged fraud.
Thank you for sharing our passion for food and Taiwan. Veggie Island explores the vibrant world of plant-based cuisine.
Wow, this is amazing.
While Taiwan on the Rocks uncovers the stories and craftsmanship behind every sip.
Have you ever tried Taiwanese beer?
Are you ready to taste even more of Taiwan?
Hello and welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Inka Vat. Today we examine China's engagement with Africa.
So, unfortunately, this very aggressive form of cultural revolution-like politics in China seems to be moving forward in this modern era.
This grave injustice is happening.
The issue is, what can the U.S. do to help strengthen Taiwan?
We need that kind of mindset to prepare for the warfare.
What implications does this have on Taiwan and the region as a whole?
Just like Ukraine right now, you need people to understand we're doing this for our own country.
Reaffirmed our support for the Taiwanese ability to make their own decisions about their own future.
It's very hard to duplicate in a short time. Taiwan still can continue being the leading position if we put efforts on R&D.
And you are riding on a wave. This is exactly the time you need to double down.
Or I did not realize I am actually running to be the first Asian woman in the state senate. Our next generation, they can see Asian American is as equal and have the same platform.
Taiwan Talks provides a platform for the voices and perspectives that are shaping our country.
For more stories from Taiwan, around the world, and in front of a World War II era aircraft carrier, please download the TaiwanPlus app.
It's bigger than it looks.
Start your weekend with a cup of coffee and a moment to reflect on what happened this week.
Hello and welcome.
We've got you covered, from defense and politics to high tech and the arts.
Not just to Taiwan, the whole world is watching.
You make the coffee, we make the news. Here's what happened on TaiwanPlus.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. Amid several ongoing investigations into alleged fraud in Taiwan's mass recall movement, the head of the Central Election Commission says election officials are just following standard procedure.
那个个栏
对
啊，就是用打字的，
对，然后最后本人
签名或盖章，
对，那只要是用打字的，然后最后是亲自盖章，这个是合格的联署书，对不对？对啊，那这样的话，你要怎么去查它是不是伪造？你要怎么去查它是不是有问题？
签名查对人员，他们会做辨识。
The Central Election Commission has flagged 41 recall petitions for containing either fake signatures or names of dead people. Prosecutors have searched several local offices of the opposition Kuomintang. A few individuals involved in recall campaigns against KMT lawmakers have also been questioned for alleged forgery. The deadline to submit second-stage signatures for 50 lawmaker recall campaigns is approaching. That will determine whether lawmakers' positions will go to a vote. The ruling Democratic Progressive Party is scrambling to defend its proposed tariff relief special budget, which opposition parties have countered with their own proposals. The Kuomintang and Taiwan People's Party are pushing to cut what they call irrelevant items, like the DPP's proposed $3 billion subsidy for Taiwan's state energy utility, TaiPower.
那试问，如果因为少了这1000亿，未来造成电价的波动？ 未来造成电价的调涨，那我们中小企业还能承担得起进一步调涨的电价吗？现在我们讨论的是要怎么雪中送炭。
TaiPower has for years operated under losses, but still receives government support. The ruling and opposition parties have long-running disputes over the country's energy policy. Taiwan is set to phase out nuclear energy later this month, in accordance with the DPP's goals. U.S. President Donald Trump and Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney have met for their first talks in Washington, just weeks after Carney led the Liberals to their 4th election victory in a row. The talks come as Canada faces ongoing U.S. tariffs on car parts, energy, and lumber. At a meeting in the Oval Office, Carney responded to reporters' questions about Trump's previous comments, calling Canada the 51st U.S. state.
And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever. But the opportunity is in the partnership and what we can build together.
Carney's Liberal Party won the April 28th federal elections with promises to stand firm in relations with Washington. The U.S. Navy has lost a fighter jet in the Red Sea for the second time in 8 days. Officials said an F-18 Super Hornet failed to catch the arresting wire while landing on the USS Harry S. Truman aircraft carrier. The plane overshot the deck and fell into the sea. The 2 aviators on board ejected and sustained only minor injuries. Last week, another F-18 worth $67 million fell off the same carrier while being towed. Cardinals around the world have gathered at the Vatican for the secret conclave to elect the next pope. The new leader of the Catholic Church will inherit challenges like the Vatican's waning finances and whether to continue the progressive legacy of Pope Francis or revert to a more conservative doctrine. Gino Lopez reports.
2 weeks after burying one of the most popular popes in modern history, more than 100 cardinals from around the world are set to elect his replacement in Rome. The late Pope Francis leaves big shoes to fill, and with a following of more than 1 billion people, the new head of the Roman Catholic Church will have his work cut out for him.
Francesco, il mondo va sempre si sviluppa, dunque Ogni giorno ci sono delle novità, lui deve leggere, il Papa deve leggere i segni dei tempi per avere una risposta giusta e non essere chiuso nel suo palazzo.
Hundreds of faithful have gathered in St. Peter's Square, optimistic that the Cardinals will make the right choice.
Pautada para nuestro nuevo Papa. Ojalá sea un proceso dirigido y guiado por el Santo Espíritu de Dios y que le dé a todos esos cardenales que van a estar ahí reunidos esa sabiduría, ese discernimiento para escoger a nuestro sucesor de Papa Francisco, el cual con mucha tristeza, ¿verdad? Extrañamos.
The papal conclave is a closed-door assembly in the Sistine Chapel, where cardinals under the age of 80 vote in secret for the next pontiff. They are secluded for the duration of the process. To be elected, a 2/3 majority will be needed. The vote can last from as little as 2 days to a few weeks. Compared to previous conclaves, this one is more diverse, with 50 nations represented for the first time by their cardinal electors, most of them from the global south. Many of the cardinals who now make up the electing body were appointed by Pope Francis and have never met each other, leading some to suggest that this conclave might take longer than previous ones.
What it seems to mean is that they have agreed among themselves that they need more time to get to know each other, because they could have started earlier. They decided to stretch it out.
The next pope will face multiple pressing issues. The Vatican is facing a budget shortfall and growing liabilities for its pension fund, with Pope Francis creating a fundraising commission earlier this year to address the matter. The Church is also seeing a shift in its demographics. Though there's been a slight rise in membership, the new faithful are from non-Western nations, whereas the Church is seeing a decline in numbers in the global north, particularly across Europe. Pope Francis also opened the Church to new discussions around the ordination of women and inclusion of LGBTQ+ people. And he elevated climate change to a moral issue and denounced unchecked capitalism. While some Catholics have criticized Pope Francis' reforms, others have celebrated them and hope for a new pope who will continue his legacy. Observers say that no matter which direction the papacy will take, he who fills the role will carry great influence, especially amid ongoing turmoil around the world.
The Pope is also very well listened and respected in the civil world. So, for example, negotiation on wars and peace, the Pope is always one of the leaders that will help nations have a dialogue instead of war.
For now, the Roman Catholic Church prayerfully waits, hoping it won't be too long before the white smoke rises from the Sistine Chapel, signaling in a centuries-old tradition that the conclave has made its choice. Justin Wu and Gina Lopez for TaiwanPlus.
The southern Chinese province of Yunnan is known around the world for its tea, but customers' taste buds are changing, and some locals are now brewing coffee. It's a new trend that even the government is now starting to take notice of. Zelan Sata has the story.
After centuries of growing tea, China's tea farmers are now turning towards a new brew, pouring their efforts into a whole new market for coffee.
原来之前呢是说是有钱人才能喝咖啡，现在就不用了，我们国内就直接消掉了。现在。
Just a few generations ago, nobody and poor in China's southern Yunnan province had even heard of coffee. The region was known for its richly fermented tea, pu'er tea, a beloved beverage famed across East Asia. But as Western trade brought coffee to busy working people of China, taste began to shift. Instead of tea leaves, they started increasingly opting for punchy espressos and flat whites.
最开始大家其实都是从雀巢的速溶开始的，再然后呢是星巴克进入国内，大家开始去喝星巴克的奶咖和美式，然后再到现在的话呢，因为越来越多的人去了解了我们的咖啡，然后了解了我们自己国内也有自己的咖啡的这个产区嘛，然后大家就开始去慢慢去尝试去接受这个精品咖啡，所以说现在也有很多的人开始慢慢去尝试去喝我们的手冲咖啡，因为手冲咖啡确实是可以让大家去更加能够完整的去感受到这是咖啡这个原本带来的风味。
In poorest shady valleys, farmers grow coffee trees, pick and dry their cherries, extract their precious beans, and ship tens of thousands of tons to major cities like Shanghai and Beijing. Tourists come from all over to taste their hand-drip coffee, right from the source. With high mountains and cool weather, the region is perfect for growing coffee, and now produces nearly all of China's supply.
首先，我们就是做农民嘛，做农民，一般我们都不会闲的。一般采摘咖啡的话，就是从10月份到3月份采摘，然后茶叶的话，从3月份到10月份就采结束了。我们是这样。
这里山地气候多，海拔比较高，都在1000米以上，所以种出来咖啡品质就是浓而不苦，香而不烈。 而且都有一定的果酸味道。
With more Chinese choosing beans over leaves, even the government is paying attention. Officials are now rolling out policies to boost investment and attract tourists, to grow the future of coffee in the area once known for the tea it gave its name to. Justin Wu and Zalan Shata for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, today we take you to Kenya, where people are learning capoeira, an Afro-Brazilian martial art. I'm Betty Chen. Take care and see you next time.